In 2003, Lego was hemorrhaging cash at a rate that threatened to end the company within 2 years. The most beloved toy brand in the world, a company that had survived the Great Depression, 2 world wars, and the rise of video games, was on the verge of collapse.
Lego is here. Hey, kids, look, a whole new...
Not because of a scandal, not because of fraud, not because a competitor had built a better product. Lego had nearly destroyed itself by doing what every business consultant in the world told them to do: grow, diversify, and innovate. The turnaround that followed became one of the most studied comeback stories in business history, because it required Lego to do something almost no struggling company is willing to do. They stopped trying to be everything to everyone, threw out half their product line, and went back to basics. Within 5 years, Lego was the most profitable toy company on Earth. This is how they almost lost it all, and how one decision saved everything. Lego was founded in 1932 in Billund, Denmark, by a carpenter named Ole Kirk Christensen. The name came from the Danish words "leg godt," meaning play well. The now iconic interlocking plastic brick was patented in 1958, and its design has remained almost completely unchanged ever since. For the first 3 decades of the brick's existence, Lego's strategy was beautifully simple: make the best possible construction toy, sell it in as many countries as possible, and let children's imaginations do the rest. It worked spectacularly. By the 1970s and 1980s, Lego had become a global phenomenon, one of those rare products that transcended culture, language, and geography. A child in Denmark, Japan, Brazil, or the United States could sit down with the same bricks and build the same things. By 1990, Lego was one of the most recognized brands on Earth. Sales were growing consistently. The company was privately owned by the Christensen family and had never needed outside investment. But in the early 1990s, something shifted. Video games were exploding. Nintendo, Sega, and later Sony were capturing the attention of children in ways that traditional toys couldn't easily compete with. Lego's leadership looked at the landscape and made a decision that, at the time, seemed entirely reasonable. They decided to grow aggressively in every direction at once. Through the 1990s, Lego launched an extraordinary range of new initiatives, most of which had little to do with the plastic brick that had made the company famous. They opened Legoland theme parks. They launched a line of children's clothing. They created Lego-branded watches, backpacks, and video games. They built a children's television network. They opened retail stores. Each initiative made sense in isolation. Together, they nearly broke the company. The problem wasn't just the cost of running so many different businesses simultaneously, though that was significant. The deeper problem was what the diversification did to the core product itself. In an effort to compete with video games and other entertainment, Lego began making its sets increasingly complex and specialized. Instead of simple bricks that could build anything, the company began producing highly specific pieces designed for single sets. Pieces that could only be used for one purpose and couldn't be mixed with other sets. By 2004, Lego had over 11,000 different components in its product line. For context, in the early 1990s, that number had been closer to 6,000. The more specialized pieces made individual sets more impressive, but they also made Lego more expensive to manufacture, harder to manage logistically, and less replayable for children who had built one set and moved on. Meanwhile, the company had outsourced significant portions of its manufacturing to reduce costs, a decision that created quality control problems and supply chain complexity that further strained operations. By 2003, Lego was losing approximately $300 million per year. The Christensen family's accumulated equity in the company was being consumed at a rate that threatened to leave nothing within 2 years. A company that had never needed outside capital in 70 years of existence was now facing the possibility that it might not survive. In 2004, the Christensen family made a decision that would prove to be the most important in the company's history since the invention of the brick itself. They hired an outsider as CEO, a 36-year-old former McKinsey consultant named Jørgen Vig Knudstorp, who had only joined LEGO 3 years earlier. Knudstorp's diagnosis of LEGO's problem was almost brutally simple. The company had lost sight of what it was. LEGO was not a theme park operator. It was not a clothing company. It was not a television network. LEGO was a toy company that made one product, the best construction toy ever invented, and it had spent a decade trying to be everything else instead. The turnaround plan Knudstorp implemented was built on a small number of decisions, executed with unusual discipline. First, LEGO sold or closed almost every non-core business. The theme parks were sold to Merlin Entertainments. The clothing line was discontinued. The television network was shut down. Second, the product line was dramatically simplified. Over 50% of LEGO's components were eliminated. The number of unique pieces fell from over 11,000 back toward the levels of a decade earlier. Sets were redesigned around reusability. Bricks that worked across multiple sets that children could mix and recombine. Third, manufacturing was brought back in-house and relocated closer to LEGO's core markets, a decision that increased quality control and reduced supply chain complexity significantly. And fourth, and perhaps most importantly, LEGO leaned into the partnerships and licensed themes that were already working. LEGO Star Wars, launched in 1999, had been one of the few genuine bright spots during the difficult years. Rather than treating licensed themes as a distraction from the core brand, Knudstorp embraced them as a bridge, a way to bring children into the LEGO system through characters and worlds they already loved, then keep them there through the open-ended creativity of the brick itself. Harry Potter LEGO followed. Then Indiana Jones, Batman, and eventually Marvel and DC. By 2008, just 4 years after Knudstorp took over, LEGO had returned to profitability. By 2012, it had overtaken Hasbro to become the second largest toy company in the world. By 2014, it surpassed Mattel to become the largest, a position it has held ever since. The LEGO turnaround is studied in business schools around the world, and the lesson most people take from it is about focus. Cut the distractions, return to your core, execute with discipline. That's true, but there's a more specific insight worth holding on to. LEGO's near collapse wasn't caused by laziness or complacency. It was caused by intelligent, well-intentioned people responding rationally to a genuine competitive threat, the rise of video games and digital entertainment, by doing what every piece of conventional business wisdom told them to do. Diversify, grow new revenue streams, build an ecosystem around your brand. Don't be dependent on a single product category. Every one of those decisions made sense individually. Together, they nearly destroyed a 70-year-old company in less than a decade. The turnaround worked not because Knudstorp had a revolutionary new strategy. It worked because he was willing to reverse course completely, to admit that the previous decade of growth had been, in many ways, a mistake, and to rebuild around the one thing LEGO had always done better than anyone else. Most leaders and most companies find that admission almost impossible to make. Knudstorp made it at 36, 2 years into his first CEO role, with the company losing $300 million a year. That willingness to be honest about what wasn't working before the company ran out of time is what made the difference. LEGO today generates over $2 billion in annual profit, more per dollar of revenue than Apple. The Christensen family still owns the company. It has never been publicly listed. The brick that Ole Kirk Christensen patented in 1958 is still, in its essential form, the same brick being sold today. It still fits together with bricks made 60 years ago. In a business landscape where most products become obsolete within a decade, that consistency is either the most boring thing imaginable or the most remarkable. If you want to understand the decisions behind the world's biggest corporate failures and comebacks, subscribe. There's a new one every week, and if today's story made you think about what it really means to focus a business, I've linked a book in the description, Brick by David Robertson. It's the most detailed account of how Lego's turnaround actually happened from the inside. Link is below.